Good afternoon and welcome. Welcome indeed, yes, to a Friday edition of the Mark Mosey Show, as we're always broadcasting live from the Anidjar and Levine Accident Attorney Studios. Take back control of your life. Call them today, 1-800-747-FREE. That's 1-800-747-3733. Anidjar and Levine Accident Attorneys, official studio sponsor of the Mark Mosey Show. And I'll say this one time before we get to the actual great conversations today. If you'd like to be a podcast partner of my show, hey, hit me up through social medias, Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff, or go to my official website, markmoseyshow.com, for more information on being a podcast partner this fall. Now let's get to some great conversations here heading into the weekend. And we start with some Florida Gator talk with my great friend Alan Zlotorzynski, Brevard Sports Network. He loved watching the new Netflix series on SEC football and a whole episode dedicated to the Florida Gators. Here's Alan Zlotorzynski.
A lot of these shows that do follow leagues like Hard Knocks, it's a week-to-week thing, right? So you have to, because things only happen week to week, right? So that's how they follow them, right?
I'm sorry.
I mean, it's not like they can jump into the future. So that's an idiotic thing to say, Alan.
You may get angry like you're not Marty McFly.
Right. Like, I don't know what the hell's going on at Buffalo Bills training camp in 2 weeks, right? So anyway, what they've done is they took multiple reporters and they have followed every SEC team last year. And throughout the course of this show, for example, episode 2 is all about, and it's a great episode. It's all about Billy Napier and the Florida Gators and how Napier handled the pressures of people wanting his job. I mean, that was the storyline of the show. The subplot to this was the Graham Mertz, DJ Lagway situation, and how each quarterback handled that until Lagway went down with the ACL tear. Or I'm sorry, Mertz went down with the ACL tear. So I learned a lot in that second episode. If you haven't seen it, watch it, because I was wrong about a couple of things. And going back and thinking about some of the things I thought at that time, it was clear to me, looking back, that I may have allowed the fact that I am somewhat of a Florida Gator fan cloud my judgment. Because ultimately, in the end, what Paul Feinbaum says about what the Gators ended up doing last year, and he's right, it is one of the most impressive turnarounds he's ever seen in college football in a season, in the course of a season. And looking back at what they did last year, he's right.
Well, look, if Mertz stays healthy, they don't win some of those games. And I'm sorry.
Let me ask you this now. Okay. He gets hurt in the Tennessee game, right?
And they should have won that game.
Right. It was Mertz that got them almost to the finish line in that game. Like, remember, Lagway came in and turned the football over in that game. Remember that, right?
Yes.
So they did, the Gators missed that field goal. I think they missed the field goal in overtime, right? And then Tennessee won the football game. But I kind of would have liked to have seen what Graham Mertz would have done in overtime. If they would have even got there, does Graham Mertz turn the ball over? And if Florida beats Tennessee in Tennessee, Graham Mertz doesn't come out the rest of the year.
If Mertz is healthy, does he beat Ole Miss and LSU later in the year? No.
I think he beats LSU.
All right, so you're going with that.
Maybe not Ole Miss, but I think he beats LSU.
I think Lagway playing later in the year saved Napier's job.
It does, and they say this. They absolutely make that point, but they also say that the fact that he stuck with Mertz really showed a side of Billy Napier that a lot of people didn't think existed.
See, what's weird. Okay, so I think they lose to Georgia. Okay.
Yes.
And then that's a game they should have won with
Yeah.
Lagway. They were right there. Then remember and I'm sorry if I'm going to go on record as saying this. I like DJ Lagway. He's injury prone. He is.
Well, he was hurt. He was hurt the first week of camp.
Yeah, and he's so never ends. Remember, he doesn't play against Texas.
No.
They get embarrassed in that game. And the athletic director came out and said, "Oh, we're behind going into the game. We're behind the coaching staff. We're behind Napier." And they go out and they get embarrassed in that game and had no one at court. You and me should have been the quarterback in that game.
Yeah.
And you're still not sure about Napier until he wins those games in the swamp late.
Until the letter was released from the athletic department, what was it, week 6 or 7, that said Billy Napier's not going anywhere. Remember that letter that came out on a Sunday?
Yes.
And it said, Billy Napier's not going anywhere. He's the guy for the rest of the year, basically telling the alumni to shut up. Remember, the alumni raised enough money to buy Billy Napier's contract out.
All right, let's go back. I love we're going to do this. I appreciate it because it's like so crazy. All right, remember, they open against Miami on national TV. Everyone saw that. Cam Ward cut them up and
just at home.
And all the Miami fans drove up. They went up 95 to the Turnpike. They went up 75 to Gainesville, and they watched the Hurricanes kick the crap out of the Gators.
Yep.
And the only exciting part of that game was late in the fourth quarter in garbage time when Lagway got in.
Yep.
And you saw him for a couple of plays. So after that, that's when it started. Is this guy going to get fired? Then they play a cupcake. The one that really, really was bad is when they played Texas A&M at home.
Yeah.
And A&M had to go with the emergency true freshman quarterback, and he crushed the Gators.
Yep.
That Saturday night, I had multiple insiders tell me Napier's gone.
Well,
he's gone after that game.
The worst thing that happened in that quarterback situation was Samford. Because remember, Mertz, he got a concussion against Miami and was in concussion protocol. And Mertz didn't play against Samford.
Yeah, and Lagway did and threw for 400 yards.
He was the first true freshman to start for Florida since 2014, they said, right? He throws for 450 yards, 5 touchdowns, and he's the savior. But he does it against Samford. And then they come back the next week and Texas A&M throttles them, right?
And Mertz plays that game.
But he gets through. They went dual quarterbacks back and forth all game long. And then they kept this up. And then they beat Mississippi State. They get a big win over Mississippi State. And then, look, I think it was then UCF, right?
Okay. All right. I'll tell you this. See, I love you watch documentary. I saw it. Right, what were you going to say? I'll let you talk.
No. I know. I was just going to say, he went this quarterback situation back and forth. They beat UCF, and then they get to the Tennessee game, and that's where the quarterback controversy ends because Mertz tears his ACL.
All right, so that game, I'll just say this. I love how fired up we are about this, okay? So they had 2 weeks to prepare for UCF.
Yeah.
I went to this game in Gainesville because I said, I cover these two teams. I want to see them play each other. So they had 2 weeks to prepare. Napier was ready. He was ready for UCF. They came out and smacked UCF in the mouth, and that's when I was done with Gus Malzahn at UCF. They looked discombobulated. They didn't know what they wanted to do, and I think the players checked out for UCF. They were 3-1. They went on a tailspin after that game. Napier, at the press conference afterwards, what he said was fascinating to me. He said, I was sitting there in the front row. Napier said at the time, hey, we are struggling, but no one on this team has jumped ship. No one's transferring. We're all in this together. We're going to continue to compete. And then you notice they competed moving forward.
I think the win that really brought this team together. Well, I'll say this. The overtime loss to Tennessee, I thought there's never a good loss, but I thought it was a good loss for them. But the win that really jump-started the end of their year was how they throttled Kentucky. because they hadn't beaten them. Napier hadn't beaten Kentucky to this point.
Yes.
So the fact that they destroyed Kentucky at home, and then they just kind of took off from there, I mean, listen, I mean, we'll see. You're right. I think Lagway's injury prone as well. But yeah, I mean, they would lose to Georgia. But for the most part, listen, I think Paul Feinbaum is right. The turnaround was incredible last year. And exactly what you just said that Napier said at the podium, he said something very – matter of fact, if you watch episode 2, there's a point where he's in the locker room and they just got their ass handed to him. I think it was after the Texas loss, right? And he looks at him and he goes, let me tell you something. Let me tell all of you something. And he's talking to him like I'm talking to you right now. He says, it's going to be brutal out there. He goes, they're going to want my job. It's brutal. He said, you got no friends. He goes, you gotta do one thing. You cannot let that divide us. You cannot let what happens outside of this locker room divide us inside of this locker room, because we know where we are. We know where we want to be. We know how close we are. And it was one of the most heartfelt post-game loss speeches I think I've ever heard. And you could see the camera pan around the room and look into the eyes of those players. And I knew then, this was the third game of the season. They were bought in, Mark. Yeah. They didn't care what people were saying on the outside. And that's why Billy Napier kept his job.
You look at this fall. We'll end with this here with Alan Zlotorzynski. I think they can go 9-3, like best case scenario. With this gauntlet, the hardest schedule in college football again. I think if they can get to 3 losses, I think they can make the playoff. You have a stretch early where they're at LSU, at Miami, and then Texas at home. That's the start. That's like the first September and October.
Yeah, listen. If they go 9-3 with this schedule, I think they deserve to be a college football playoff team. Now, obviously, we have to see how everything else pans out. Are the teams that make this schedule so difficult going to have the years that we think they are? So we'll see. But yes, I agree with you. I would also tell you it was fun in that SEC documentary to watch episode 1 about Brian Kelly, because remember how remember Kelly slamming his fist and saying he doesn't know, what is he doing wrong? He couldn't figure out what he was doing wrong because LSU couldn't keep winning, and then they couldn't win a game, and that was fascinating to watch Brian Kelly and LSU work out of that. And the other part of this that fascinated me was Netflix did a terrific job with the Alabama Vanderbilt game.
Yeah, Vandy won that game.
Yeah.
And it kept Bama pretty much out of the playoff hunt.
Yeah.
I think since you watched that episode, I know I've been saying this for 5 straight months. We got to go to Florida, Texas. I'm not kidding. I can't. I know you'll have, with BSN, you'll have a game Friday night, which will probably be a big epic showdown. I know it's going to be. Then I know Saturday morning with your coverage, you'll have like Pee Wee football. I know you do a great job with that. I think it's going to be under the lights, ABC, game of the week. I think college game day. Think of, because we've been in press boxes before. It'll be the whole country's going to be watching it. It's the Manning kid versus Lagway. And I think there's going to be every NFL team is going to be in that press box with us.
Yeah, just like at the bowl games when you look there and you see all their nameplates and stuff. Let me look. I'll send in a request. Yeah, I'd love to go.
Dude, that will be the biggest game at the Swamp since I think 2021 when they should have beaten Bama. That game they lost by a field goal or a touchdown. That game they should have won. That's how it's going to be wild. So great stuff with Alan Zlotorzynski, Brevard Sports Network, and he's going to join us every Tuesday this upcoming football season. Now let's switch gears. Let's go to South Florida. Let's hear my amazing conversation. Can't say great, amazing conversation with Alex Donno. Yes, Locked On Canes and his expectations for the team here in 2025, and especially, are they getting enough love to win the ACC? Canes, are they underrated right now going into the season? Should they get more respect to win the conference? And I'm sorry to say this to you, they've never won the conference. So is that valid if I feel that way when we go into this 2025?
It's valid, and I think that's one of the reasons why Miami is slept on just a little bit. And in saying that, I agree with the conventional wisdom that Clemson should be the favorite to win the ACC. Like, I got no disagreement there. But when I talk about Miami getting slept on a little bit, I've got two reasons for saying that. Number one, I was at ACC Media Days a couple weeks ago, and there were like, I don't know, 180 of us or so that voted on all the media polls, and including all ACC team. Literally half of the all ACC team is Clemson. They got 11 guys, which is like, that's insane. Like, if Clemson's really that much better than Miami and everyone else, because the next teams in line have 2 all ACC players, Miami and a few others, Clemson's got 11. So I don't know. I feel like there's a little bit of like a herd mentality that's like putting so much hype behind Clemson. Like, we'll see if they're actually that dominant in the conference. And then another thing is, I think Carson Beck is getting underrated a little bit, if not a lot. A year ago at this time, the guy was the greatest thing since sliced bread. Like, everyone had him, number one on their preseason Heisman lists, and potentially number one overall draft pick. And, he had, I guess, a bit of a down year last year. The numbers were still really good. And Georgia had the 102nd rushing offense in the country. They were below average in pass protection. His receiving core led the nation in drops last year. So, like, I feel like he's getting blamed for a lot of things that weren't necessarily his fault. He's also coming off of injury. So a lot of folks, like, they actually want to see Beck's arm before they fully believe that he's back. I mean, having been at the first couple of training camp practices for Miami, I'll tell you, the arm looks fine. The recovery looks great. So I think he's getting underrated a little bit. So, I feel like Miami's firmly like in second place in the ACC, if not a team that I think has enough talent to push Clemson and possibly win the conference.
Hell of an answer. I love it. Hell of an answer right there. Talking with Alex Donno, Locked On Canes. Okay, you said you were there in Charlotte. You got a chance to talk to Mario Cristobal. What was your impression of him as he's entering a big season for him as the head coach there at Miami?
He feels, at least I think he feels, because he didn't come out and say this directly, but you read between the lines, that this is the most talented overall roster that he's had at Miami in the 4 years he's been there. He still feels like the trajectory is going up. And listen, last year, Miami, of course, had the ultimate cheat code at quarterback in Cam Ward. And yet they still, despite winning 10 games, which is really good, they didn't get into the ACC championship game, and they didn't get into the college football playoff. And those goals were like right there. When they had that 9-0 start, Miami should have been in both of those things, and they couldn't close down the stretch. They lost, 2 out of their final 3 regular season games to fall short of those goals. But Cristobal, to me, seems very confident that his roster from top to bottom, and as much as I like Carson Beck, I don't expect Carson to be superhuman the way that Cam Ward was last year. But I think the overall roster is better. I think Cristobal is extremely bullish on his offensive line, which is the unit that he's most associated with, being a former offensive line coach. I think he feels pretty good about his defense, which is one of the main takeaways, Mark, because, hey, the primary reason why Miami didn't make it to the ACC title game or the college football playoff it was really their defense that let them down throughout most of the season down the stretch. They've hired a new defensive coordinator, Corey Heatherman, who came over from Minnesota. Cristobal speaks very highly of him. He speaks highly of the way players are buying in and kind of learning the scheme and executing the new defense. And so I think he's confident that this is the overall roster that probably gives him the best chance out of, this will be the 4th year coaching Miami, 4 recruiting classes in. And I think Cristobal, my primary takeaway is he seems legitimately pleased with the roster they're going to be putting out there this year.
Okay, so the follow-up to that is this. You bring that up. New defensive coordinator, new quarterback, I don't know, 4 or 5 brand new wide receivers. Is it still wait and see, give it a couple weeks, and get ready for Florida? Is that your optimism then when you look at the first month of the season?
Yeah, 1000%. And in fact, that's another big reason why I would slightly favor Clemson to win the ACC. They've got more continuity than Miami and literally more continuity than anyone else in the country. Clemson returns the highest percentage of their production from last year. So, yeah, there's definitely some wait and see there because Miami is replacing all four of their top receivers from last year in terms of catches and yardage. They're replacing their top two tight ends from last season. It's definitely, I think there's an opportunity though, Mark, to have as good of a group as last year, or if not better. But again, you've just got to see it because there are certain receivers that have been standing out. CJ Daniels is a transfer from LSU, who's a 6-year guy who, even though he's a transfer, he's become like the elder statesman and the leader of the receiver room. He's been looking very good in practices so far. Miami's top returning receiver from last year. He was a true freshman last season, so he didn't play a whole lot. JoJo Trader, but he was productive when he played, and he has an opportunity to step up and potentially be the number 1 or number 2 receiver this year. Miami also has, they've got some experienced guys in the slot. They're replacing Xavier Restrepo in the slot, which is probably outside of Cam Ward, probably the toughest guy on this team to replace. So that'll be more by committee, I think. Tony Johnson, an experienced transfer from Cincinnati, has practiced pretty well so far. But the one who's really been turning heads, and I talking about this on my Monday episode today of Locked On Canes, is true freshman receiver Malachi Toney. This dude is he's one of those super young true freshman guys who's really shining so far. Kind of reminds me maybe of what Kevin Concepcion did as a true freshman a couple of years ago at NC State. He's since transferred to Texas A&M, but maybe Malachi Toney can have that type of a first-year impact. And there's a couple of tight ends that are looking really good. Elijah Lofton heading into his second year, and Alex Bowman, an experienced tight end who transferred over from Tulane. So I think they're again, this is going to be the theme of a lot of what I say, Mark. I think the talent is there, and these guys have been flashing in practice. But again, you're replacing 5 of your top 6 pass catchers from last year. You're replacing so much production that there definitely has to be a wait and see to actually sort of believe that these guys can produce the way I think they can.
Okay, but then you start with Notre Dame. Well, that's not an ideal scenario, is for everything you just said.
Well, so I think the big emphasis, at least early on in that Notre Dame game, and this will be the emphasis on both sides, because something that Miami and Notre Dame have in common are probably 2 of the best offensive lines in the country. And, the Fighting Irish are going to be breaking in a new starting quarterback because they, moved on from Riley Leonard. It's either going to be Minchie or CJ Carr. We'll see which one of those guys wins the job. And they don't have the experience. So I think both teams are really going to try to rely heavily on the running game and kind of see what gives up front. But to your point, Notre Dame, they did lose some of their guys from last year, but their defensive secondary should be, again, one of the top in the nation. I have no doubt about that. Last year in the college football playoff, they didn't allow a single reception by a wide receiver against Penn State in the national semifinal. So that's going to be for Carson Beck to have his first game at Miami, for these receivers to have, their first game as Hurricanes or first started as Hurricanes. It's hard to draw up a tougher matchup. That's probably the toughest defense Miami's going to face all year, quite frankly. So it's not an ideal situation, but I think the identity, especially early on for the Hurricanes, is going to be win battles at the line of scrimmage, which is going to be tested against Notre Dame. So it would not surprise me if that kind of ends up being a low-scoring game with both teams just trying to beat up the other.
Let's end with this with Alex Donno, and I appreciate you coming on today with Locked On Canes. I know you're a busy man, so again, thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, the ACC. They had 2 teams make it last year, but now the playoff committee decided, the hell with who's the top 4 conference champions. They're just making it up as they go along. What does Miami need to do? Do they have to win the conference? Do they have to at least have 2 losses? What's the best case scenario for this football team to make the college football playoff then?
Yeah, of course, as you alluded to, the easiest way, I say the easiest, Miami's never won the ACC before, but winning the ACC would be the easiest way or the clearest path in. Because if you win the ACC, you're going to get in. Just like you mentioned, you're not guaranteed, a top 4 seed. But if you win the conference, you get an automatic bid. Are there scenarios where they can make it without winning the conference? Sure. SMU was able to do that last year. I just think if Miami were to, let's say, come in second place in the ACC to still make the college football playoff, I think they've got to at least split the tough non-conference games against Notre Dame and Florida. Like, you've got to win at least one of those two, because I think Miami would probably have to have like a 10-2 regular season record, maybe 10-3 if they lose the ACC championship game. In that scenario, I could see Miami getting in. Now, if Miami loses to both Notre Dame and Florida, and then they lose a regular season conference game, and they lose to, let's say, Clemson in the ACC championship game, come in second place in the ACC, if you're 9 wins or worse, you probably won't make the top 12, because they're not going to give ACC teams the benefit of the doubt the way they'd probably let in, 3-loss SEC, potentially Big Ten teams. So I think that's got to be the path, right? If you win the ACC, easier said than done, you're in. If you come in second place in the ACC, you better, have a strong non-conference record and either sweep Florida and Notre Dame or win one of those two. And I think they can get in that scenario.
Was last year a disappointment in hindsight then?
Yes. Yeah. I think it's something Miami fans agree on. I think you'd find very few Miami fans who would say, you know what, we really felt great about, because the last taste in your mouth was, obviously losing the bowl game. It is what they didn't want to be in the Pop-Tart Bowl anyway, but losing that Syracuse game, the final regular season game, which literally kept them out of the ACC championship game by losing that game. Tough way to end the year. 10 wins was a step in the right direction. Like, it showed progress, but when they were that close to making, significant postseason strides and they fell short of it because they blew a 21-0 lead against Syracuse, it was a disappointing season. Like, they set the bar high early in the year, but then they fell short of that bar late in the year. I believe they need to surpass that and get to the ACC championship this year to call it a success.
Well, I hope they do. Alex Donno, yes. Locked on Canes. Thanks for your help, buddy, and have a great day, all right?
Mark, my pleasure as always, man. Thank you for having me.
Great stuff with Alex Donno, Locked on Canes. All right, before we get out of here, let's talk to my main man with the Viera Voice here in Brevard County, Chris Bonanno, and his thoughts as we switch gears to the Tampa Bay Rays. What's the future of the team? It's still in the air, even though they have a new ownership. Here's Chris Bonanno. Going to happen. What about you, Chris, when you look at the future of this franchise?
Everything you're hearing is we want to stay in Tampa Bay. We want to stay in Tampa Bay. If you talk to locals there, they'll tell you if you build that stadium in Tampa, you're not going to have the attendance issues versus whether you have it in St. Petersburg. I suspect in time that's where it's going to be. They had everything pretty well flooded. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. What if we don't have a hurricane last year right south of Tampa Bay? They may have that stadium deal all done, and you, who knows, your ownership group might have stayed. But the acrimony between the Stu Sternberg group and local municipalities just became so toxic. Had to be one of the reasons why. And you hope that this new ownership group, especially when they get a stadium, they may not have a Yankee payroll, but you'd hope with a market like that they might get to maybe a more mid-sized payroll. I mean, beyond that, I think we may have some sort of collective bargaining thing coming down the pike that may force them to spend more. But for now, I think a new ownership group is good. The Orlando thing is not happening. And as long as there is a team in Tampa Bay, there is no chance Orlando will ever get a team.
I think about the last 5 years where, all right, we're going to be in Ybor City. No, that's not going to happen. Oh, hey, we're going to play half our games in Montreal.
Oh.
No, not going to happen. Remember, they had the press conference at that, what is that, Salvador Dali Museum? I remember this. They were out there. We're going to play half our games.
Trying to spin that as a good thing to people of Tampa Bay was hilarious.
It's terrible. So you did that, and then we're going to have the new stadium here. It didn't work. I think they stay in the Tampa Bay region, but I think this is still up for grabs where a stadium might be. I'm not sure what's going to happen here. I'm intrigued to see, especially when that new ownership finally gets the keys to the castle. Then we'll see what happens, Chris.
It sounds like he's already met with the mayor, and sort of like kind of paving the road for, trying to start off on the right foot, essentially,
Good.
as opposed to what Sue Sternberg had done. And so it's look, I think anybody is a upgrade from what they were doing. The fans really did not like that ownership group. And so hopefully it's a good thing for the Rays. If you got that organization, the way they do business, even to a league average payroll, that'd be something.
Look, I've told you this for years. The fact that they're even competitive in that division against those other monster giants of franchises, including your Yankees, is a Disney movie. It's incredible. And of any franchise, how do they keep showing up with 20-year-old superstars in the waiting? They get rid of one, there's another guy that just shows up.
It's kind of crazy, right? Wander Franco was seen as this generational talent at shortstop. Obviously, the legal issues destroyed that career, it appears. But in his place, granted, he's not playing shortstop, he's playing third. Junior Caminero might hit 40 home runs this year. Like for an infielder on the left side of the infield, that is incredible. So for them to do what they do, kind of almost in a way mastered that Patriots thing of getting rid of a player 1 year too early rather than 1 year too late. Yes. That's kind of their MO, and just sort of recycling those prospects. It's really impressive. And if what I think happens, if I think the owners are going for a salary cap, you might get a salary floor. The Rays are really well positioned for that, but I do think we're heading for some sort of major reorganization economically in baseball.
See, I wanted to ask you that question. Are you in favor or are you against the salary cap? Me, before you answer, I am for it. I am, even though, hey, we expanded wild cards. All these new teams constantly make the playoffs. Hey, Texas won the World Series 2 years ago. I want a salary cap because I look at teams like Pittsburgh. There's no hope they'll ever do anything. I want a salary cap. How about you?
So, in a perfect world, even though I'm a Yankees fan, it's the only. Now, I don't like the idea of a hard cap like you have in the NFL. How about a soft cap where you can go over it, a la the NBA, where you can go over it to re-sign your own guys? That I think is worth it. I think a salary floor would also be good. That way, you don't have an owner like a small market owner just pocketing the revenue sharing, like they're putting it into their. But here, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
And I saw this question posed online. Would you be okay with the 2027 season not happening if it meant a salary cap?
No, you can't lose a season.
I think those are your choices.
You're correct. I'm going to say this right now. This is not 1995, which, 94, 95 really hurt baseball.
It still hurt baseball to this day.
The world we live in now with sports, you can't compete with football. Every day you're on the sidelines, football's going to keep getting more popular. You cannot. If you lose a season, then whatever, we don't need you. There'll be a hard truth in the face where you'll miss us. No, there's too many other options for entertainment. You cannot have a work stoppage. You can't.
There will be some sort of a work stoppage in 2027.
I could see that. Okay, they lose a couple weeks. You can't lose the whole season. You're crazy.
It depends. I mean, if the owners go for this cap, oh boy, because they're the last league without a salary cap. Right, the other three leagues have gone for it. So,
all right, here's what I'd say if I'm the players. Oh, you want a salary cap? Then why did you give Juan Soto $700 million? Why are you handing out these contracts now? So it's funny, they hand them out to win, but then when they have to pay the bill, they're upset now.
Now there's a counter argument to that, which is why can't the owners of Pittsburgh and Tampa Bay and the Athletics, why can't they spend more money? Right. So what we're trying to do, right, is we're trying to make it so that it's still, obviously economically viable for owners to own a baseball team, but we want to make it so that the Dodgers aren't outspending a team by $300 million or the Mets. Like, that's just not fair. That doesn't happen in the NFL or the NBA or the NHL. That's why in hockey, Winnipeg can be as competitive with the Rangers, or Green Bay can be as competitive with the Giants, etc. Like, that's where a salary cap is important, because right now, honestly, all the teams can't win in MLB. Like, the Pittsburgh Pirates didn't even try this year.
No, they didn't. Look, Oakland, which is now just called the Athletics, and the Rays don't even have stadiums right now. Now, again, one's a hurricane, one's waiting to go there. This is the same reality as the Phillies, Mets, Dodgers. Like, I don't get it. I don't. That's not fair. You got to have some type of competitive balance here.
Right. I mean, look at the NBA, right? The Oklahoma City Thunder just won the NBA championship. Would that happen in baseball?
No.
Probably not.
No. Look, the argument, and I like this discussion, by the way. Again, 2 years ago, it was Arizona and Texas for the World Series.
Sure.
This past year, it was the Yankees and Dodgers. We'll see what it is like this postseason.
Yeah, of the final four teams, right? 3 of them were the Yankees, the Mets, and the Dodgers. It was like, it's like we're just throwing our wallets at the problem.
Yeah, and if you're a Mets fan, I think of like John Torres and Jerry Durney and JC, like all these different guys I know. They're thinking, yeah, we're spending all this money, we still can't win the World Series. What is this? After a while,
they've got a good team this year, but the NL is just it's crazy how much better the NL is than the AL. So those playoffs will be something.
All right, before I let you go, and you got to come back on, we'll talk high school football the closer we get. I like this discussion. All right, so let's just go over the Cliff Note answers for you. Okay. So you say yes to a work stoppage in 27. You see it happen.
I mean, no one wants to see it. I think it will happen, right? The CBA expires on, I believe it's December 1st, 2026. That's the new league year. So like that off season. So I think you might see teams really, really go for it next year. Just go crazy.
And then you're saying the Rays will stay in Tampa.
Rays are going to stay in Tampa.
And no third team is going to Orlando, which
not a chance. I mean, I get. It almost makes me upset, to be perfectly honest with you, when people think there's a third team. Like, no, we've got 2 teams in Florida. Neither one of them are particularly well supported. Why are we doing a third team an hour away? No chance. I do not understand it. I wish it would happen. But the Orlando Dreamers name is particularly apt because that is like, it's fantasy.
It'd be more realistic. Seriously. Us getting a third hockey team. That's the crazier one where I could actually see that happening because they have so much success in the state of Florida.
If they were going to do it, I would say Jacksonville more so, just because that North Florida market really isn't involved. But I would think Orlando is pretty well embedded with the Lightning. The Panthers obviously have just taken a hold of South Florida. That would be interesting. And Jacksonville, I guess, population-wise, I guess it's bigger than Tampa and Miami. But
I feel like, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, Florida is home to spring training baseball, and everyone loves it. But I think there's more support for hockey in this state than there is the 2 Major League Baseball teams.
Well, they're good now. That's a part of it. If they were cellar dwellers, no, it probably wouldn't be as much. But look, they've combined to go to the last 6 NHL finals. Like, that's why you got support, right?
That's why I always joke, Chris. What's Florida known for? I'm like, hockey. We're good of any sport of winning championships right now.
It used to be college football, right? But now it's hockey.
We'll find out. Chris, my man, thank you so much for coming on. Have a great day, and I hope I can get you on again sometime.
Thank you.
Great stuff with Chris Bonanno, Viera Voice. Always love talking to him. All right, I'm out of time, but here's what's on tap for the weekend. I am going to be going out of town. I'll be off next week, going across the pond. Follow me on socials, Mark Mosey Show, for all the photo and video updates. I don't want to spoil the fun. You'll just see. Hey, if you want more information, anything going on, markmoseyshow.com. And we're always broadcasting live from the Anidjar and Levine Accident Attorney Studios. Hey, have a great weekend, and I'll see you on Monday, August 18th. We'll get ready for a new football season right here on the Mark Mosey Show.